I'd like to ask them if they have any comments or reflections on this meeting. Many of them worked hard as we led up to the meeting, thinking about how we should organize some of the sessions so that we can learn more about what's going on in the program. Most were really concerned and wondering how do we pull together everything that's being learned in individual projects and see how is STEM-C advancing the field. So I'm just wondering, as we move forward into this section, do you have any comments about this meeting and what you've learned? Has it helped broaden or deepen or grow understanding about the STEM plus C community and what's being learned through that? I know each of you has your own specific projects you're responsible for, and this has probably given you an opportunity to learn about lots of projects that you haven't had a chance to learn about before this time. So I'd just like to know if you'd like to start off with a few comments about that.
Hello, Maria Alejandra Sorto, Alejandra. Thank you. How are we all doing? Okay? Yes? Okay. So, we're here to support you. And it is just so exciting to actually see the human and the person behind the proposal, the award, the number, the ID number that is so important. Okay? But it's great, and I've been paying attention to the things that make us a community, and I can only, I was telling Arlene, there's a beautiful word in Spanish called amalgama, and I think it's a cognate. But here's the definition, one of the definitions that I found, and I think it relates to us very much so. Es la mezcla confusa de personas y cosas de distinto origen o naturaleza, y algunas veces contrarias. It is the confusing mix of people or things. So think about you and also computational thinking, right? Of distant origins or nature, and sometimes in contradiction. But I have to say, even though we all have different identities, I wrote down, data scientist or computational scientist researcher, or yet we do not have these contrary things that I would expect from people coming from so different origins in nature. So it's wonderful that you actually are indeed an amalgama. So thank you for that.
So I'll build on that. I think I had some similar thoughts, and my name is Monica Cardella, if you don't know me yet. But I think I've just really appreciated all of the complexity, all of the intellectual hard work in recognizing and sitting with the complexity of this work, as well as just all the joy in that work too. I've just really appreciated that. We've talked a bit about how there are different ways people are thinking about and defining and operationalizing computational thinking, as well as what that means to integrate it with other disciplines. Similarly, we've had conversations about broadening participation and all the different ways people are thinking about that. And so I just appreciate the ways that people are grappling with the ambiguity and uncertainty, but also embracing it to be able to do creative work. So I just say kudos for engaging with the ambiguity and uncertainty in those ways.
Hello, my name is Wu He. I just want to add one more short comment. So if you have any news report or media release about your project, please feel free to share with program officers. We would like to collect those media and the news reports to help us better understand the impact of the STEM Plus C program. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ferdy Rivera, and I handle and manage the math and CT proposals. And so I guess I have, or not guess, but I have 3 comments based on the 4 years of processing math STEM C proposals, and also from the experience with with different PIs providing different perspectives on CT over the past 3 days. So the first one deals with a methodological concern. So we have to be sort of like concerned. Again, it's not a harsh criticism, but we have to be concerned about attributing changes or gains in, say, understanding and knowledge of teachers and students to CT. So what I have experienced, at least after listening to some projects or even reading published work, is the significant amount of noise, NOISE, when authors make a claim that, oh, the CT is making phenomenal change in the way students are understanding STEM content. And so it becomes very significant, especially when the measures used are focused on non-cognitive variables like affective domain, like self-efficacy or self-interest. It's easy for authors to say, and PIs to say, oh my God, my project is making significant changes in teachers' attitudes about STEM, C, computing, and math. But seriously, we really don't know that. There are so many variables and noise that's affecting how teachers and students are responding to those questions. So just be mindful about, from a methodological perspective, that the measures we use actually are more or less measuring what we really would like to assess in the first place. So that's the first one. So when which comes to my second point about this notion of integration of STEM and CT. So I'm pretty sure you all read Janet Wing's seminal piece on computational thinking, and at the very core of her argument about the CT is this understanding of layers and levels of abstraction. Of course, Janet Wing is a computer scientist, and does not situate the work in the STEM disciplines. So what I would like us to do, and again, this is a challenge to the field, because this is an emerging field, is like, how do you situate abstraction in context? How do you allow CT to emerge in mathematical context or in scientific context? Because what's happening right now is that there's still this separation or boundary. It's like when PIs or teachers implement CT-based work, it's like, okay, so let's learn the coding first, and then let's do the math, or let's do the science first, and let's do the CT. So if I'm the teacher, and I work with teachers a lot, it's always like, okay, Ferdy, this is another one of those skills that I need to learn. But if we really want to have an authentic, meaningful integration, yeah, that CT, that computational thinking has to emerge in context. So the French technology scholars have a nice concept called instrumental genesis, where stemming from Vygot's work, where tools become instruments for learning. So like when a kid learns how to play with a hammer and knows how to use it proficiently, then the kid develops schemes for using the hammer effectively. I think it's the same way with math and science. If you want kids to learn coding, you just don't ask kids to say, all right, so let's do steps to code. But how does that emerge in mathematical activity, or how does that emerge in scientific activity? Does that make sense? All right.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to make any general comments before?
Oh, wait, I have one last comment.
Okay,
All right.
one more.
All right. So which leads me to just to finish that thought about integration. So we have always been talking about CT computational thinking, or assessments that are pretty much assessing CT's competencies or CS competencies, but that's not the point of the whole integration. It's this whole STEM-C program, at least from my understanding, and the reason why I like this program is that it's not really CT itself, but it's CT/STEM practices. So you cannot isolate the CT without considering, okay, so how is that influencing the way a subject matter is changing, Like, how is abstraction being captured in math through a different form of representation and expression? So if I'm using, say, UDL terms, Universal Design Learning, how do you use coding and computational thinking as another one of those means for expressing, engaging, and representing mathematical or scientific phenomena? If you situate it that way, then teachers will buy into the concept, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. So I'm using CT as integral to understanding math. But the moment if we continue to separate the notion of STEM and CT, it's not gonna work. This will just be a fad. After 10 years, there will be another kind of thinking that will emerge. And then this leads me to my third point. I was thinking about Maya's point about disabilities, so students with special needs. Jim Caput is a very much revered mathematician and math educator. Conceptualized technology as a means to democratize access to hard-to-reach concepts. And so I'm also coming from that perspective as a program officer. When I evaluate proposals, how is the coding, how is the computational thinking helping teachers democratize access to those concepts in different ways? There has to be a purpose to doing computational thinking. If you're approaching it from a computer science perspective, I think that's computer science envy for me. I'm not interested in computer scientists. I'm interested in how computational thinking is used as a means to help students understand mathematics and science deeply. So we have to foreground the content. Otherwise, it's just going to be another one field that's going to go away. So there you go.
Thank you very much. Any other comments before we open up to the floor?
Oh, well, I just want to say that I am in a very deep process right now because I'm looking at the work that you've all done over these last few days. It's such a deep process, and it's such a deep process for me that I'm really in it. I'm actually deep in an analytical process right now. And one of the ways that I'm sort of conceptualizing around the work that you've done is that I'm looking, I'm listening to your project by project analysis and what's emerging out of that. I'm looking at how that fits into different strategies for the program. I'm looking at the synthesis, the magnificent work that the synthesis team did in trying to make meaning of the conversations that were heard, future directions, issues that are emerging from the program, things that we need to still grapple with, things that we have to deeply think about. And so, my mind, I wonder if you're feeling similarly, but I'm just, it's going to take a bit of time to kind of unpack all the observations that I really have seen over this time. I'm just so full of them. And in the immediate, before I give you my final comments on your work, I would like to just comment on a few things that were raised through when you stepped up to the microphone. One is when Chris mentioned about modeling and simulation, and that was seconded by John Moore. I just want to say that I agree about the value of doing that, and we have to find a way to begin to bring that together. That's a very, very important aspect of STEM plus C and its relationships to the field. So I just want to know that I heard you, and that I think that we have to continue to work on that. With respect to CT definitions that Paul raised, Paul Goldenberg, I just want to say that I agree with that as well, that I do believe that some of what we've struggled with was shifting from computer science into what might be emerging findings on the definitions of computational thinking. So what wasn't clear from the inception of this program was what you would find out. So you accepted this challenge of integration and computational thinking within the disciplinary areas and on a transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary level, very complicated work. I mean, one of the things I'll say to you later is I mean, this challenge has just been phenomenal. It's very difficult. And the way that you have unpacked this, the thinking about computational thinking, we weren't sure from the beginning whether computational thinking would begin to emerge as a new definition because of the way it's being applied to the solving of critical disciplinary problems. So that was an open-ended question. And what we were looking for in terms of are there any common definitions emerging from the projects is whether some of those definitions are beginning to have commonalities that we might want to reflect upon and say, you know, it seems to be that what's emerging in biology is having some characteristics that everyone could use. And so there's no effort to come up with another singular definition reflecting upon what Ferdy said and what Paul said as well. No reflection to do that, but it's going to be interesting in time to see what you have said about it. And and I like the idea of labeling it and then unpacking it within each project so that there's a very clear definition of how it's being operationalized within each project. Then, in terms of computational science, computational science is actually the precursor of this program. When we were conceptualizing STEM plus C, we looked at the fields of computational science, and how you do that on a K-12 level. So I just want to tell Bob Hilborn that computational science is very much the heart and soul of this program, and it should be more explicit if that is not found. So heard you on that. And then I wanted to reflect on the integration process versus the disciplines. That integration is very critical that we do this, and not as a flag to wave, not as education du jour, not as something that, digital technologies, and, there are always these new emergent issues. Integration is critical because our world is moving in that direction, and we have to bring our students and teachers along. We have to understand the integration process because the world is becoming increasingly interdisciplinary, moving more into transdisciplinary, where fields are really overlapping. And the reason this is happening, the reason we're having all these computational sciences and interdisciplinary work, and why NSF itself has called out convergence as one of its big ideas for the future, is because it is a big idea for the future. We have to do this work, and we have to bring our students into this picture because that is the world they're growing up into. And so this interdisciplinary focus, this integration of computational thinking and computing within the disciplines is time well taken to prepare students and teachers. And one of the factors that we considered when we were conceptualizing the program is that teachers don't have time also in their schedule to be teaching their discipline and then teaching computational approaches or teaching computational science, teaching computer science. Schools don't have the resources. They don't have the teaching capacity. That's why CS for All with, trying to emerge more computer science teachers, because there's a dearth of teachers. We just have to increase the capacity in the field to teach computer science, but we equally have to be able to teach the integration of computational thinking within the disciplines as an integrative approach so that students can understand the impact of computing on the very same fields. If they don't understand the relationship and the creative application of computing to the solving of scientific problems, they will not be prepared for the future. And I kind of fear this because we do need to do this for the future. And I'm so impressed with how everybody has retained such fidelity to the solicitation. It's quite amazing what you have done. And I'm going to reflect on that in a little bit. I'm just so impressed with the fidelity to the ideas, the fidelity to the solicitation, the dedication to the work, the depth at which you are trying to solve these problems has just been staggering. Like I say, I'm in a deep process. You all have put me in a very deep process about the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Arlene.
We took you in a process, but you've taken me in a process.
Do you have any more general comments before?
Oh, general, yes, policies. One of the things that I'd like to say is that bringing all of this to light, this is what I heard in your discussion, all of these reflections right now are what I just picked up from what you've just said, that the policies that through this work, some of the next phases that will come up is how you really effectuate on the policy level. Because, it's, on a school by school, and Damali mentioned this, the Billion Oyster Project, Lauren Burney mentioned this, they're working on citywide and statewide issues. This is going to begin to emerge as something that is imperative for the schools to do. So the integration process and the policies will start to come together when there's evidence, and you are doing the evidence. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Shen, would you like to have any comments about
Oh,
your
hello.
reflections? Your reflections on the past few days?
We just reflections.
Okay, is this on?
Yes,
I'm on.
but speak close to the microphone.
All right, so I haven't heard what's said except after I came up here, I heard Arlene has articulated basically, the way we've been influenced by all your project. My reflection, especially in the past 3 days, and maybe in the past few weeks, I've been thinking this program through. This is the 4th year I've been with this program, and this program has been 5 years, right? So integration is a core, but I've turned around to think in terms of transdiscipline, by breaking down the tent. Computation has been always sound really difficult for people who are not in computation, but computation, thinking is so crucial across all disciplines. So I think this is a program where we actually break down that tent, break down the boundaries of the disciplines. And the computational thinking is the thread through, because that's enabling new discoveries and enabling the next generation of learners to learn how to advance the future. So if we think in terms of breaking down their boundaries and having all the disciplines basically merge across fluidly through computation, and that might be a way to think to go further in the field. Another reflection I have is, I think Yasmin touched upon a little bit on this, and because her project is debugging that design, and happened to be, I know that project very well, I was hoping to hear more collecting evidence that you have that actually help people to help the community to understand actually what didn't work, so that people don't repeat that. Because as a community, you need to sort of stand on each other's shoulders so the research becomes stronger, bigger, and taller. To grow taller, we have to know what not to repeat, but what really works going beyond.
Thank you.